Hey, that's an exciting group of people. I think now we could move right on to the presentations. And first up is John Steere, and his talk is on developing and implementing community-based green infrastructure and urban greening. And I think he's got a couple of good examples of projects that he has worked on. John, unmuted.
Oh, hey, John. Yeah, sorry, you're muted.
Great. Now I'm unmuted, hopefully.
Yeah.
Let me get back to the presentation. I can't even see what I'm doing here. Let's see here. What happened here? Oh, yeah, I cannot see my presentation. Let me open it up here. Right. Oh, I'm not seeing this. Okay. Let's see here.
We can see the screen, John. We can see.
You can see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't see it. I can't see where I am in the presentation, so that's weird. I just had it, but then but now I can't see it. It's just all I can see is your faces. But you can see the presentation now. I just have to be able to get to here. Let's see here.
You know, maybe if I stop sharing screen.
Yeah, let me start it again. Okay, then I'll start it again. Okay, so here we go. Okay, now can you see it again? Great. Okay. Well, I should mention that my presentation today is really about. It began when I was contacted by Barry about basically doing community-based approach to something along Marsh Creek or perhaps GI. And I said, well, you know, I can only speak to what the county has done. I can't speak to what you should do in, around Marsh Creek or in Brentwood, because that's city of Brentwood, which is what led me to also get in touch with Brant Wilson, and we're so glad he's here tonight too. So basically, I'm going to be giving you a presentation that discusses how a community-based approach to green infrastructure, said here as GI and urban greening, has been a focus of my work to some extent at the county, where I work under the county watershed program. Kind of like I'm in the county in the same kind of section as Brant is with in public works and clean water program in the city of Brentwood. So that's sort of our relationship here. We both have it, but I've also beyond my work in implementing the non-point source requirements under the Clean Water Act, I am also working on projects like the ones you'll see here. So in North Richmond and in Bay Point. So let's proceed here, and I should mention that after I give this presentation, it'll be followed by Sarah Puckett, who will really talk about what is near and dear to your hearts, which is doing GI or maintaining GI or even creating GI along Marsh Creek. Although it could, after you see this presentation, you may get some ideas about, well, maybe we can do it elsewhere in the city, because the city of Brentwood does have goals of having at least 4 acres of new GI within the city jurisdiction between now and the end of the current municipal regional permit that every municipality has to carry out. This is under the Clean Water Act again, and that is in 4 years from now. So first big question: what is green infrastructure? Well, it's about the use of plants and other processes to filter our stormwater, and as you'll see, it provides many benefits. And you know, we're basically doing think of it like it's biomimicry. It's using engineered wetlands to do what nature does normally, because we have so much impervious surface in the Bay Area. We have some areas 70% and 80% impervious surfaces, and what this does is green infrastructure helps to restore something that is akin to a natural hydrology. In other words, how the land would have been before development, and reduce the amount of erosion and sedimentation that occurs in creeks, which is why it's part of the Clean Water Act now. And it also, as you can see here, reduces pollutants from buildings and roads, etc. And here's some examples. We have bioretention basins along the edges of streets, like this is shown in the city of El Cerrito on the left, rain gardens on the right between buildings, and permeable pavement as examples. Here's some more. Here's an example of in Richmond, West County of Contra Costa, along the Central Richmond Greenway. This is Unity Park, which is actually a community-based park. It was founded by the Coast Conservancy many years ago and has been actively putting in green infrastructure along it, because along the corridor that adjoins this, which is the Central Richmond Greenway, for many years now. Watershed Project and Urban Tilth are leading that. You can sort of see an example of a rain garden here, a profile of it, showing how the plants and soil serve to filter the rainwater, stormwater. So what's good about green infrastructure? And I'm using the term broadly here, as you'll see more examples of it shortly. But in the case of like green infrastructure, as we think of it in terms of green stormwater infrastructure, it reduces, it slows down, it spreads the stormwater into the soil. It slows it down, and it is obviously does filtration. That's this urban slobber piece here, and then it's over time it's lower maintenance than say concrete infrastructure. And the synergies here, that's where multiple benefit really comes in. You know, and you'll see this in the projects that are being sponsored by the county. In one case, the North Watershed Connections project, and where we're supporting the Contra Costa Resource Conservation District in Bay Point. There are multiple benefits in all these synergies here will be shown in those projects. Reducing urban heat island, providing active and passive recreation. You know, bringing nature into the city provides many benefits for health and well-being. Now, here's a broader view of green infrastructure. As you see here, pedestrian path in a park, stormwater channel next to it, bringing that into a park, vegetated buffer, that's more urban greening, and a green street or a complete street with green infrastructure. Now, the foundation for our work, or my work as far as implementing green infrastructure around the county, is our green infrastructure plan. Well, we're one of 17 GI plans in the county. City of Brentwood has its own, which Brentwood, I'm sure, will be happy to share with you. It's on their website for the city of Brentwood, but this one is on our website as well. And it really provides kind of as you see here, a kind of blueprint that is mutable, changing over time, of those GI opportunities around the county. Now, the ones that will be shown here in the two projects that I'm going to present were priorities in our GI plan that was published 4 years ago, just before COVID. And we had a lot of community involvement in that, as well as within the county, we had a technical advisory group from many departments involved in this. And that helped us going forward because, you know, we had folks from the planning department, we call in the county Department of Conservation Development. They work with us closely to help identify GI priorities in North Richmond and work around them. And of course, other divisions in the county, like transportation engineering and engineering services, and other divisions that that use it or relate to it or have to work with our watershed program to go forward with it. So now I'd like to launch into community-based infrastructure as a theme for this talk, and why it's I would say one of the most important things any municipality can do as far as developing green infrastructure in their community, because it engages the community members itself. We've been fortunate enough to actually work with a number of community organizations that you know, not unlike say Friends of Marsh Creek, say in the case of maybe the Watershed Project, but they're larger groups, and in both cases they actually have paid staff. So these are community-based organizations, but they have been working in Richmond, North Richmond for a long time. As you see here, where it's located is in North Richmond, which is you see the project location on the right-hand side there. You see North Richmond is actually looks like it's part of Richmond, but it's not. It's actually county land, county jurisdiction, and so that's why the county is involved here. And the project began about 8 years ago. I mean, literally began in at the last Watershed Symposium in 2015. That's 2 symposiums ago, and we talked about it. I talked about it with my colleagues at the Watershed Project, and then I involved other folks as well. But anyway, the project was funded by also $1 million grant back in August of 2019. We're just wrapping it up now in the next month or so, and I'll describe it shortly here. But you can see why it was important to do it, because North Richmond has, you know, it's one of the most disadvantaged communities in the Bay Area. And it's built on historic wetlands of both San Pablo and Wildcat Creek, which come to the estuary in North Richmond, but it used to be further east than it is now. It's it's right out by with all the fill, it's much further west now, the estuary. So it lacked sidewalks because it was redlined during the 40s when it was first developed. So only African Americans were living there. They couldn't live anywhere else, and so it allowed for really not adequate infrastructure. And so there's ditches there, and there was a real lack of sidewalk strips and so forth. So in a way, this is correcting some of the it's an environmental justice project in that way, because it's really, we're doing environmental enhancements, nature-based solutions, which are helping both for reducing flooding and increasing resiliency in the community at a time when climate change is really affecting all of our communities. The foundations of this project is multifold, is many sources. There were a number of community gardens I was actually involved in helping to with a couple of them. One was a native plants garden, but they were done by Urban Tilth and Watershed Project, and now defunct organization. And they had I should note here, and this is made for this benefit of the city of Brentwood, the county was already funding both the Watershed Project to do adopted block, which was serving to reduce trash in the neighborhoods. We had Watershed Project carrying these adopted block programs on various streets to reduce the trash in Richmond, which is probably the worst in the entire East Bay. Why? Because we're very close to a landfill. It's also a disadvantaged community, but the efforts of adopted block, both before it and now during the program, and creating a lot more beauty and stewardship of North Richmond, is reduce trash so that it's no longer a trash challenged community, which is quite exceptional. And I should mention here that the benefits of the project are also quite unique, quite extraordinary. And as I mentioned, the project is actually just wrapping up soon. So you're seeing these. This is sort of when we were promoting the project back in 2019 to the Coast Conservancy. Here's what we mentioned, that we're going to be expanding the urban forest, because North Richmond, like most poor or disadvantaged communities, has probably like 10% street tree coverage. So we're looking to increase the street tree coverage. We're improving and enhancing sense of place and sense of stewardship within the community, and awareness of the local resources, as in San Pablo Creek and Wildcat Creek. Let's see what this looks like in the actual project itself. On the left, you see some photographs displaying some of the features, and on the right, we see the three main components. At the top, probably a little hard to see, but the light blue line where the project says Fred Jackson Way Rain Gardens at the top of the here. I'll describe each of these components. You can see that under construction here with people planting it with a yellow vest. That's the upper. That is the next to the Urban Tilth Farm, and is right adjacent to San Pablo Creek. You have the Fred Jackson Way first mile, last mile urban greening. You see bicyclists going along the lane there. That's a brand new project of our transportation engineering group. And along that, we planted all these street trees. You can see here the myrtles next to it. And those are a total of 38 of those were planted on the main drag in North Richmond called Fred Jackson Way. Then in addition, we have the Clean and Green Walkable Watershed adopted tree program that was a project of the Watershed Project. So you can see we had a partnership of two nonprofits, Urban Tilth with its Urban Tilth Farm and the Fred Jackson Way Rain Garden, the Watershed Project. Yeah, let me go to the next one here. So you can see here we've got Urban Tilth in green here. Then Transportation Engineering led the first mile, last mile urban greening along Fred Jackson Way, and then the Watershed Project had a whole suite of projects that they're still working on. Will be finished in another month or so. Adopt a tree, planting about close to 40 street trees, mostly in front yards, because there's not enough room on sidewalks or next to sidewalks. Walkable watersheds, cleaning the outreach, education, and travel engagement. You'll hear more about that shortly, because it's a very interesting set of. So the first component here is Fred Jackson Way Rain Garden, and This is, as you can see on the right here, it's adjacent to the North Richmond Urban Tilth Farm. And this formerly, the land of the Urban Tilth North Richmond Farm is formerly that of the Floodcontrol District because it is adjacent to San Pablo Creek. It was leased to Urban Tilth, and they recently purchased it, as in last year. They've actually expanded the land, expanded their holdings to expand the Urban Tilth Farm this year. They added another 5 acres, and we approached them. Well, actually, they approached us. We said we'd like to have them involved in this North Richmond Watershed project. Back in 2018, they said, "Yeah, we'd like to be involved. We'd like to do a rain garden along our frontage, and we'll maintain it. We'll actually raise the money to build it too." So Oak said, "Great, you'll be part of our team then." So what you see here under construction is it's like a 500-foot long rain garden, and it collects water. And you can see what it looked before is like it was a trash strewn strip along the edge of Fred Jackson Way without a bike lane, as is shown here. And you can see when it's finished, as in April 2023, you've got a lot of new plants and mostly native plants. There's some trees in there too, which you don't see here. But it's quite exceptional, the transformation. And as I mentioned before, that will not be maintained by county workers. It will be maintained by Urban Tilth members. They're called Basins of Relations crew members, and it's sort of a workforce development team. Now we're on to, oops, let me go back. Let's go on. Now we're going on to the work of the Watershed Project, and it's adopted the walkable watersheds, created a urban nature loop, also known as a safe routes to school. Well, one part of the safe routes to school as you see on this map here, the portion of the North Richmond that is south of Wildcat Creek is residential. So the destination there for safe routes to school is Verde School, which is kind of in the middle of that image here, right here. That is so when students and their parents are walking to school, they're going to be walking to school shortly with new trees as you focus the street tree planting along this corridor. And there's also, as you will find out shortly here, QR codes and identifiers for what happened there historically, as well as when it was formerly land of the Chochenyo tribelet of the Ohlone people, native peoples. And then up here, another destination is the Fred Jackson Way Rain Garden. So if you go further here, you can see here we have 2 loops. You have the loop that goes just to the Fred Jackson Way. I'm sorry, the Verde School along Wildcat Creek. And then if you do a wider loop, you go out to both the fish ladder at Wildcat Creek, and then further up to San Pablo Creek and the Fred Jackson Way Rain Garden. So it creates a nice kind of, bringing nature into the community of North Richmond helps people. So this project is really helping people's health. It's getting them connected to the watershed and enhancing their capacity for stewardship. It's a vivid demonstration really of how to take an integrated approach through installing green infrastructure, and planting street trees and adding other elements to really enhance the health of residents and San Pablo and Wildcat Creeks. Really taking a broad view of how watershed thinking helps. As I mentioned here too, with workforce development, Urban Tilth has its basins of relations staff, and the Watershed Project has its green collar core, which works both for the county and on behalf of residents there to plant street trees in this case with residents. And looking back here, they did an urban greening master plan, you might say, which is the first in the county, and it'll be the first of many to come because our new general plan requires that to happen. In other words, it requires that we'll do a master plan of street trees, because why? Climate action. It's climate change is in the need for reducing urban heat island effect, especially in hot areas. As you know, out in Brentwood, it gets hotter than ever over the past 20 years. And of course, the same is true in North Richmond and in Bay Point, where we're also doing a project with the RCD. So anyway, moving now on to our next project, because I do want to leave time for, well, want to leave enough time for Sarah to give her presentation, which will bring everything that we're talking about back to where you live and in and around Brentwood. Well, now we're getting a little closer to Brentwood here. This is a project that was led actually by the RCD, who's hosting the meeting tonight. And I've been working with with Hyphy and with who was a consultant to the RCD, and specifically with Chris Lim and a couple other staff at the RCD in developing this over the past 3 years. This was a project in development for the past 3 years. I've highlighted this one piece of it saying it got, congratulations to the RCD for getting a $1.6 million grant for both planning and carrying out the project from the California Department of Water Resources. This is one of only 2 grants they gave out in the Bay Area. And so this is it's a really kudos to the RCD for getting this funding from them. What this refers to is a DAC-TIP. It's a Disadvantaged Community Tribal Involvement Program. So basically, it scored really highly because it's a disadvantaged community and because this project is really multi-benefit and based on urban greening, green infrastructure, as you'll see shortly. And we have partners there, as you see, the RCD, Ambrose Park District, which is a spinoff from the county. It's actually its own park district, but was formerly part of the county Public Works Department. And of course, our Aurora partner, Watershed program. And over time, hopefully the RCD will identify additional partners to help carry it out. And this too, like the Northeastern Watershed Connections project, which is really a template for this project, will also be maintained in a community-based approach. In other words, the GI features that are being developed here will be maintained by the RCD, their own versions of Green Collar Corps. And hopefully they can get this funded through the mitigation funds from the Keller Canyon landfill. So here's the context for the actual project, which is in Ambrose Center Park, the GI Urban Greening project there. You can see from this that there's a high water table. They've got some groundwater problems because it's a former industrial area. And so the GI here will also benefit, both flooding, reduce flooding issues and reduce potential toxins from the soils. This analysis, by the way, I'm showing for these slides, were done by Hyphy, who is the consultant to RCD. I must commend RCD as well for hiring Hyphy because they're really a tremendous they're very innovative ecological engineering firm. And so here's our kind of a summary image of the Ambrose Center Park opportunity here for GI and urban greening. And this is basically what you see here is what was being funded by the grant from DWR that they just received. Will begin this coming spring. So we have bioretention. We'll have street trees planted in the along the edges of the new trail we're establishing here that will go between Willow Pass Road and the Delta Anza Trail. There'll also be improved community garden access and also a green street that will begin on Willow Pass Road. And now the analysis of why we needed the green infrastructure in and around the community center, which is, I should go back here. You can see the community center is in the front of the photograph, front of the top of the next to Willow Pass Road. That is very well used. It's sort of the center of Bay Point. So, but there's flooding around that in the parking lot. You see the blue areas here and over here and here. In the parking lot flood. So that's why we're recommending to have GI features, permeable pavement and so forth, and street trees and what they call sylvan trees there along here, Filterra trees rather. And then there'd be GI here and these drainage patterns coming down here. The flooding in the park and the ball field. So this GI will help reduce flooding. Let's see this project in the larger picture of potential GI opportunities around Bay Point. Now, our project here is right in the middle of the, not quite in the middle. It's right here, where it says right here. It's sort of like 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth one over is the project where we received the funding for. But as you see here, these are all drainage management. These are all drainage areas for proposed GI. So in other words, all the water, all the stormwater that would flow onto the impervious surfaces in these blue shaded areas will be captured by the GI features in this figure. So there's some other opportunities here, which I won't go into. Huge one over here for another existing park, Anuta Park. That's probably the next one up. There's also a really great project for Bel Air Elementary School and another one up here, Portola, which the RCD is looking into now. This analysis was done by, I should go back here for a second here. Oops, sorry. Go back to this for a second, just because this was done by our firm here called Geosyntec, but HiFi will be working with them. You know, who knows whom the RCD will work with to develop their GI, probably HiFi. Actually, I should mention that, but they'll probably coordinate with Geosyntec to identify the work to be done. Here are other opportunities besides the one that's getting funded here. Going forward, Willow Pass Road, GI at bus stops. I should mention that the county recently missed getting by a couple of points doing a green street along Willow Pass Road, but we're going to be resubmitting it shortly to Caltrans and hopefully get funding for that. So that'll help us to implement a green street, as you might see here. Let me actually, oops. So then you have, the county is involved in doing a green street and complete street on Bailey Road, North Bailey Road, from the Route 4 here, down from Route 4 here, all the way down to Willow Pass Road. So that is underway. Well, that's underway in terms of planning. It'll be probably built out in the next couple of years. And let's finish off this analysis with looking again at these nature-based tools, some of which will be like the bioretention parking lot will be behind the community center in the at Ambrose Center Park, and the bioswale pedestrian path is feature we'll see in Ambrose Center Park along the edge of Ambrose Park. Vegetation buffer will be something you'll see along the edges of Willow Pass Road at some point in the future, as well as seeing a green street along the same street, Willow Pass Road. And as of now, as I mentioned before, we have the following partners. Very important, when you're doing community-based approach to green infrastructure, you want to find out who your community-based organizations are and work with them. So some of their partners, as you see, are institutional, like BART and Caltrans, and some are nonprofit. This is at Bike East Bay. Whenever you're doing GI, you want to think about if it's going to be along a right-of-way, you might want to think about, oh, let's make this a way to help make those bicyclists more protected by having bike barriers that is green infrastructure. We're seeing that on Rumrell Boulevard in San Pablo, city of San Pablo now, places in Oakland where you see it. And we'll see it also on Bailey Road in North Richmond, and I'm sorry, in here in Bay Point. And of course, Bike East Bay has been supportive of that and happy to put press for that. Safe House to School, that's something they will be involved in helping to work out this project, as well as for future projects in Bay Point. Okay, so here again, we see the potential tools they'll be using, nature-based tools. The wider, you might say this is the wider look at green infrastructure as essentially a nature-based tool, nature-based improvement is green infrastructure. We have green stormwater infrastructure, but we also have other types that we see here. Now, finally, I want to just say, well, why do I have this as my last slide? Well, because community-based green infrastructure is dependent upon grants. And the good news is there's a lot of them out there now. And especially with the new federal Infrastructure Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, and also there's two major laws that are pouring about 30 billion into 60 billion into green infrastructure project and nature-based projects all over the country. And in addition, there's a San Francisco Bay Water Quality Fund. So Coastal Conservancy, as you know, has funding, Department of Water Resources, and all of them are calling for multiple benefit projects, and they're also calling for collaboration with nonprofits. That's one thing we're seeing more and more. When I did this slide originally back in 2019, this was just beginning, but now it's like becoming a requirement. So this is true for the city of Brentwood as for any city in Contra Costa or anywhere else. You know, as they go forward with requesting funding for green infrastructure or other urban greening projects, they need to have multiple benefits. They need to work with community-based organizations to accomplish this work. So this has always been a prescription for success for the county and the RCD as well, of course, in the projects that I've identified here, talked about here, the North Richmond Watershed Connections Project and the Bay Point Urban Greening and Green Infrastructure Project, which is the first of what will be future other green infrastructure and urban greening projects around Bay Point. So I think it's you know, I think the keys here, I kind of highlighted multiple benefit projects and scoping it and really looking at how to implement the sub projects or components of it, and whether they really are ready to go. That's availability. That's what availability refers to. And making sure that you're really involving is a broad cross section of your community, whether it's in Brentwood or in Bay Point. And meeting with the grantors in advance, you're getting to know them, and you know, having them vet the project is really a good thing to do. Well, here we go. Well, now we kind of come back to, this is actually a photograph of Wildcat Creek, and it's up near its source in Tilden Park, far away from the city of North Richmond, at the mouth of the creek. But I think in a way it's closer in what the you know, you're dealing with a creek in Brentwood. There it's Marsh Creek, which has too you know, a canyon feature up in Morgan territory and comes out to the floodplain, which you're more in Brentwood. Well, that's the end of my show. I'm happy to answer questions and take comments too.
Things in the audience or?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I don't know if I can. Oh, yeah. Thanks for your talk and presentation. I wondered about when you do install GI infrastructure, are you also installing monitoring, or are you just using existing monitoring like stations nearby?
Good question. So green infrastructure is not monitored but inspected periodically by, you know, in our case, me. We have to make sure it's working properly. You know, that is, say it's filtering, it's not, water's not pooling, that sort of thing. That's what we don't monitor, but we do inspect to make sure it's functioning. The plants are alive, the water is filtering through, there's enough mulch there. That's what the expectation here is. I should mention, by the way, I didn't mention before, that the North Richmond Watershed Connections Project received the Outstanding Watershed Project for the county at the watershed. Can't see it very well, but yeah. So those of you who went to the Watershed Symposium would have seen Juliana Gonzalez of the Watershed Project and me receiving the award, but the award went to all the partners, and I hope that will be happening again and again, you know, further east, you know, for Bay Point, maybe for Brentwood going forward, because that's I think the future of our watershed is a future where people are engaging with the watershed, doing a stewardship, and that watershed projects are not just about restoring creeks, but they're also about restoring people's connections to those creeks and restoring people's connections to the watersheds. And projects like we see in Bay Point and North Richmond really demonstrate that.
Thanks so much, John. I think no more questions. We could move on to Sarah's presentation now.
Good. Yay.
All right, can you all see that? I'm going to try to go full screen. We'll see what happens. I may have to come back. Hold on. Presentation. Slides. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's see what happens. All right, can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it
yeah,
full?
yeah, now you can see all your slides.
Oh, you can see all my slides or just one?
Now, you can see, looks like all your slides are on now. Your view before was actually a little wider.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is kind of a weird for me too. Hold on a sec. Let me get out of this. Okay, hold on a sec.
While Sarah is doing that, I also mention one thing that Sarah was very much involved working with the county fluxual district, of which I'm a part. In other words, the Contra Costa Watershed program is part of the county fluxual district. They were working, American Rivers was working with the Friends of Marsh Creek and the American Rivers to develop the Three Creeks project, which she'll be describing to some extent here.
Okay, does this work? Is that better?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thanks everyone. John, super interesting. That was really great hearing about I hadn't heard about the Bay Point project before. And for those who I don't know, my name is Sarah Puckett, and I work for an organization called American Rivers. We're a nonprofit environmental organization whose mission is to protect and restore both small urban streams to large rural waterways for both fish, wildlife, and people. And today I'm going to be talking about the green stormwater infrastructure that John talked about, but in along Marsh Creek, and specifically on the Three Creeks project. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about the Three Creeks project, but this was a collaboration, as John mentioned, with Contra Costa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, and many, many partners: the city of Brentwood, Friends of Marsh Creek Watershed, the Contra Costa Resource Conservation District, and East Bay Regional Park District. Many people over many years came together, and it's a very long project. It goes from Sungold Park all the way to Dainty Avenue, and the project expanded the Marsh Creek Channel to make room for both floodwaters and trees. So I'll show you some pictures here. So you can see this is what this is standing at the pedestrian bridge at Sungold Park looking upstream. And this is before project construction. And I just wanted to point out a few features. You can see this this fence here along the right side. And this was kind of an old style water quality basin before green infrastructure and really came to the forefront. This was kind of how old water quality basins used to be built, with a big fence. And actually the Friends of Marsh Creek, back when this development was getting started, really advocated to locate the park as adjacent to the creek. And then also on the other side, on the left-hand side of this photo, the Friends of Marsh Creek worked really closely with that developer to locate all their required parks and adjacent to the creek. And also one of the biggest wins, I think, was to face the houses toward the creek, which when you are traveling along the trail in Marsh Creek, most of the houses are facing away from the creek, and there's a big fence in the backyard. So this development both of these developments really highlight the creek as an amenity. And so now we're going to go the next slide. You can see that the banks are going to be excavated away. This is when the creek was under construction. Part of this widening was we were able to negotiate with the homeowners, the Carmel Estates Homeowners Association on the right-hand side. They said, you can have that water quality basin. And actually the county purchased the property from the Carmel Estates Homeowners Association. And then we had this really wide area to work with to widen the creek as much as possible to plant trees. But it also needed to remain a water quality basin. So you can see here where the water is pooling, and that, well, it's rainwater, but also this is where the stormwater runoff from the neighborhood on the right-hand side, the Carmel Estates. You can see these little rock, you see my mouse here, these little rock ways. This is where the stormwater outfalls, and there's a few located along here. And then the stormwater runoff drains into this pool, and then it soaks into the water, and so doesn't the water from the houses and the streets doesn't run straight into Marsh Creek. So this was under construction. This next picture is right after it was planted. So you can see the creek has been widened, and all this wetland grasses have been planted where that water is now. So now the water runs off from the streets and into these grasses and into the soil. So the water is treated before it. There's actually a little underground. I think actually, I don't think this one has an underground piping. It just kind of soaks into the ground. And then this is what the project looks like today. So it's actively growing, lots of vegetation. You can barely even tell that it's a water quality basin, unless you knew that was the goal before. And then these are some of the features in the water quality basin. You can see these little stormwater runoff pipes. And then you can see, oopsie, there's some rocks on the right. Hold on, everyone. I have some people in the way here, but so you can see the stormwater runs off of the development and down these rocks, so the bank doesn't get eroded. And then the middle photo shows after it comes down to the rocks, then it goes into these plants and cattails. So that's one feature, the water quality basin along Three Creeks. And the next one is this bioretention facility that the developer when we were looking upstream on the left-hand side of the creek, the Palmia development where the houses all face the creek, they were required to put in bioretention facilities, which is a green stormwater infrastructure facility. And they used this rock, and I think it's really pretty. You probably wouldn't even notice that you probably just, like, if the average person walking by would just think it was a nice little Zen rock garden, but it's actually a bioretention facility. So the water pools here when in a like a small rain or dry water runoff from the streets, pools here and then filters into the ground. And then on the right hand side, you can the water eventually drains directly into Marsh Creek. And then another stormwater facility is that you would barely notice is also in front of the Palmia development. It's between the houses and the street and the trail. And there's a long linear strip that has its lower elevation than the trail. So that's another place where water will gather and soak into the ground, and then stormwater pipes will, after it's cleaner than it would have been had it just run off directly, then once it's more clean, then it'll be discharged into Marsh Creek. And then lastly is pervious pavement. So, just so you can see on the left-hand side, the straight trail that you see is right before that whole trail was removed to widen the creek. So the new trail jots to the left, and you can see the difference between this is regular asphalt, I think. I don't know my pavement very well. If it's asphalt or, or pavement, I need to talk to Brant, the engineer. But it's not pervious, so that if you were to dump a bucket of water on this pavement, it would just stay there or run off or evaporate. But you can see where the trail gets darker on the left-hand side is actually what is made of pervious pavement, which you see on the right. So it's a little rougher, and you can tell when you're like the skateboarders don't love it, like you could really tell when you're a trail user. Like as a bike, you probably wouldn't notice it, but if you were to take a bucket of water and pour it on the pavement on the right hand side, it would soak into the ground and be treated. So those are the features of some of the stormwater features along Three Creeks, and I just wanted to advertise that we're going to be going out to Three Creeks with the Friends of Marsh Creek and the RCD on Saturday, December 2nd from 9 to 11, and we will go walk along Three Creeks and check out some of these facilities in person. So I think that's it. And happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Any questions for Sarah? Sarah, if I could ask a question, that I was interested that one outlet looked as though the storm outlet looked as though it had some bulrushes going up, growing right in front of it. And I always thought they were about the world's best trash capture device, especially for plastic. You can go in there in one spot and just sort of pull all the bottles and plastic wrappers and everything nicely wrapped around those rushes.
True. Yeah. The stormwater facilities, they do capture a lot of trash, and hopefully they'll capture that so it doesn't end up in the creek.
Yeah. Is that just another follow-up? Is the Three Creeks project, it has like a year 3 and 4 still, or are we in year 3 now?
Well, the planting has been officially completed. The last plant was planted, I believe, in, well, the very last plant was planted June 2nd. So a little late, but we had really late rains this year, as you know, the huge rain in March. So we had to plant a lot of the plants after that. And then, so that completes planting, and the Contra Costa County Flood Control District approved the completion of the planting at their October Board of Supervisors meeting. And now we enter a 3-year maintenance phase. So American Rivers will be working to, our subcontractor, Triangle Properties, is going to be in charge of maintenance, but hopefully with lots of community input from the Friends of Marsh Creek Watershed and the RCD. So it's going to be maintenance for the next 3 years, and then the project will get handed over to the county.
Right. Any further questions, either for John Steere or Sarah Puckett?
I have a question for Sarah.
Yes.
Hi, Sarah, this is Alexander. I was wondering, does American Rivers have any projects on the horizon or priorities identified for Marsh Creek that, community members could help get involved with and advocate for?
Well, we do have we're working closely with the city of Oakley to implement phase 2 of the Oakley Creekside Park restoration project. So one of our staff members is actively writing a grant proposal to I don't know if you're familiar with Oakley Creekside Park, but there's a big restoration project adjacent to the park, and now there's an opportunity to widen the bridge, the pedestrian bridge that goes over the creek, and then expand the channel upstream in conjunction with a development that's going to go in there.
Got it. So are we working closely, is American Rivers working closely with ongoing development and proposed development along Marsh Creek watershed and some of its tributaries like Sand Creek?
Yeah, we try to keep our eye on it. We're not super actively looking out for opportunities, and we'd love, like, if the Friends of Marsh Creek is, or Save Mount Diablo, if you're, if there's a, like, what we've done in the past is, if there has been a development that's slated, then we start working with the developer as early as possible to try to have them put their parks along the creek, have them make room. And right now there's the habitat, the HCP buffer is 75 feet with the setback on Marsh Creek, and I believe it's 50 on Sand Creek. So that's something. It'd be great to even push it back even further. And I think that Sand Creek, I believe, is not subject, because of the Sand Creek detention basin holds so much of the floodwaters and the headwaters, that the Sand Creek has the potential, it's not as constrained. So you could plant some trees in the channel without having to widen the channel as much.
Interesting.
It's interesting news. Well, thanks so much to both our speakers. That was great presentations. I think we learned a lot. And I saw a lot of possibilities, for any future development, in East Contra Costa, that we could follow some of these pathways and really green up a lot of the infrastructure that's going in around the creek, and even our streets and pathways, that all integrates into it too. So kudos to both of you for a great job. I thought we could turn our discussion just on a more sort of homeowner level as to what homeowners can do as far as their stormwater flows. I mean, there's a lot of water that comes off roofs and driveways and, goes out into the city stormwater system, along with, oils and trash and all the other fun stuff. So I would open it up to anybody that had, like, just some simple things that homeowners can do as far as changing how their stormwater is channeled, how to slow it down around their property. I could start if you want, and my lesson is, if you're out in the, close to where like some street trees are, or bigger trees, and we had our little rainstorm the last couple of days, and you don't want to get wet, where do you go? Under a tree. Why do you go under a tree? And really, trees hold a lot of potential for actually slowing down the transfer, the water coming down out of the clouds and hitting the ground and running right off. Those individual leaves actually can hold a lot of water, slow it down, and let it infiltrate into the soil a little slower. So, those trees are, as John's North Richmond Parkway projects, it's not only the shade to heat island, but you're flipping around in the wintertime, if they're not deciduous trees, they really benefit. Slow that stormwater down, let it drip down on the ground, and then, normally under a tree you got grass or some kind of ground cover, and that again with the tree roots allows for a lot more infiltration. So anywhere on your property that's got a bare spot, and what I do is I just go, you and John both go hunt oak acorns and pop them in. Good time to do it. And in 10, 15 years, you've actually got a decent sized tree in your lot that is also a native and benefits you. So anybody else got experience or think of something that a homeowner could do?
I have one, Barry. Oh,
Go ahead, Sarah. Go on.
And that is, I like to save money by washing my car myself, but I think that taking the car into a car wash, they have their own system where they can treat the water that runs off of tires and the dirt and the grime that kind of builds up on your car. So I always feel like I'm splurging a little going to the car wash, but I also feel like it's helping to decrease polluted runoff into our storm drains.
Yeah, good point. John, did you have something?
Well, I haven't had exactly a success story, but I have, we're just slightly above the level of the street, maybe 2 feet, right? And 2 to 3 feet. And I've tried to put in just a little area, 6 inches or 8 to a foot before the sidewalk, right, between the sidewalk and our landscaping. Then there's a little bit of, unfortunately, still lawn in the street. And I haven't found a good plant that to grow in that spot. We tried the strawberry, strawberry plant, the sand strawberry or something, dune strawberry, I guess it is. And it didn't work out very well. And but we do have that just a little little 3-inch deep trench going along one side of the house. And I could extend that out and beside the sidewalk, right next to the sidewalk. And probably it'd make it a lot easier to maintain our sprinkler system too.
Well, that's it, yeah, the sprinkler system, unless you really tune it in and don't have any sort of leaking heads or anything, that can really, I mean, most lots that I see around Brentwood are all front lawn slope down to the sidewalk and street level, and that's, you see a lot of, what did you call it, John? Urban. Oh, he's John.
Urban drool.
Urban slobber.
Urban.
Yeah.
I've heard urban drool.
Slobber, yeah, right. Yeah, so that would be another thing. I don't know, we could ask Brent, maybe if the city of Brentwood allows people to take their gutters, their downspouts and put rain barrels in, or is there any city regulation about that?
I would have to check up on that. That's more of the development side of engineering that I can definitely look into it and email you though. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, the whole rain garden concept, almost like John was talking about, is there are opportunities in most lots just to have like an actual rain garden that's slightly depressed, a little swale, and with the proper planting, you can put in a lot of like water loving plants in there, and they basically have all the benefit of all that winter rain that stays there for quite a bit longer. And it's sort of amazing if you leave any like wet area in Brentwood, it's amazing, like the tulies will, or the cattails will just miraculously appear. And then the next thing you know, there's the toad, you'll see these little toads running around in your backyard, and theoretically, I think if you had enough of those around, you'd attract birds in. I mean, I know the egrets have come into our backyard and tried to fish for a koi in the koi pond because they think, oh, it's like a free fish feed here. So in your landscaping, I think there is some possibility of creating these little wetter areas and just sort of leaving them. They'd be seasonal, but they would still work for a lot of plants.
But you don't know any, wasn't there something about that the county actually would provide those stormwater barrels?
Yeah, I think Brant's gonna look it up and see if there's, like, I wasn't sure if there's a city regulation you could or couldn't do it. You know, certainly in the city, you can go and get for free your recycled wastewater that's gone out to the wastewater treatment plant, and, you know, get a big, 100-gallon tub or water tank, and, you know. Go water your plants,
That is.
in
No,
case
we don't want
in
100
case we
gallon.
have another drought, so, you know, that is an option too.
Yeah, I think that it would be okay, but I just want to double check before I commit to anything. And then another thing that I thought of is upkeeping of your storm system nearby, which would be making sure that you clean leaves out of the gutter, and that our storm system doesn't get clogged by trash and leaves and anything else that can block it, so that it can be treated properly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really important. A lot of times you'll see that, like, that, I think we probably needed another quarter to half an inch of rain to really get the storm drain system activated, you know, and then flowing out into the creek. But just remember that the entire city, everything, am I correct, Brent? Everything basically flows into Marsh Creek or a tributary of Marsh Creek. I don't think the stormwater outlets go anywhere else, do they?
No, not that I know of. Everything should be going into the creeks, and I think there's some outflow on cellars, but yeah, it should be everything in the creeks and tributary. Like, for example, the Sand Creek Road extension, they're installing a bioretention in the median, and that's going to flow into Sand Creek.
Oh, neat. Oh, so that's one of your green infrastructure projects.
Correct. Yeah, that's one of our big projects. I mean, it started because of Costco and Kaiser as a way to access both of those locations a little bit faster. And then when we go through these projects, we look for sometimes there are requirements that are based off of our permit. Sometimes we go the little extra mile to do better, but this one was a requirement that we had to install green infrastructure. So we installed the bioretentions in the middle, and then we have these basically these filtration stations at the end, where there's the outflow that goes into a little filtration area that's right next to the creek.
Oh, cool. Well, we know who we're gonna have back for another further update on green infrastructure. I'd like to see that project. Thanks,
Yeah.
Brent.
Yeah, no problem. It should be, the goal was to have it open, the whole thing, phase 1, open by May, because the Costco wanted to come in by, I believe, this summer.
Good. Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Brant, I was wondering, this might be a little wonky, but I feel like before building green infrastructure in the right of way was kind of difficult because of underground utilities, and now it seems like I've just, maybe it was the agenda, and John, you may know more about this too, of like, is green infrastructure in the right of way becoming more popular is the only word I can, like, a
Yeah.
more common practice.
It is, and I would say cities are considering it more now because it's easier to do than trying to do it on parcels, just because of most parcels are privately owned, and under the Clean Water Act's NPDES requirements now, every city has to provide has a goal of meeting at least 5. In the case of the county, it's 5 acres per of green infrastructure, and for Brentwood, it's 4. But more important than that is that green infrastructure is in right of way actually helps do 2 things. One is it can reduce, it puts this road on a road diet, which is actually safer, makes the road safer for both pedestrians and for bicycles. And so then it becomes a real great tool for, as we have seen with the Fred Jackson Way Rain Garden and Greening Project, it actually enhances the value of the what is known as the first mile, last mile, or active transportation program. We've got bike lanes. It actually protects it with a class 4 bike lane, which is separating the bike lane from the road, can be done through green infrastructure, which is one of you see that in Oakland, you see that in Richmond. It's really great. As a cyclist, I really appreciate those using green streets with green infrastructure.
Thanks.
Yeah, those are good points. Well, there's no further discussion. Oh, go ahead.
John, I had one more question for you. I was wondering, just to your knowledge, does the city of Antioch have a green infrastructure plan? I know you mentioned Brentwood had one.
Yeah, I'm sure the city of Antioch has a green infrastructure plan. All the municipalities have their own, and they have goals too. They have a very large population, and so they probably have a goal of at least 4 acres of green infrastructure in the next 4 years. And a lot of the cities, I should mention here, one of the benefits of doing a community-based approach to green infrastructure is that it will help to have it happen. Because a lot of cities, most cities are going to say, we don't want to build GI because we can't maintain it. In other words, the city staff or county staff we don't have the capacity to pay for it. If we pay for it, it's going to be through grants. If we want to maintain it, we can't do it because we don't have enough staff for it. And that, I'm sure, I suspect that Brent with city of would concur with this. So that's why taking a community-based approach where you actually involve community-based organizations to maintain it, or community members even, is valuable.
Yeah, that's super valuable. One of the big problems that we're running into is that we have 3 inspectors right now, our construction inspectors, and those are the guys that are going out there to check on our GI as well. So when they get busy, like one inspector is full-time on Sand Creek, one of the inspectors is doing 2 projects with me right now. When they get busy, it's hard to allocate time to checking these green infrastructures. Luckily, when the rain comes, it usually slows down construction, so they do have a little bit of time to do it during rainy season to check to see if everything's flowing well and doing those visual inspections. But we have over 140 green infrastructures that we check up on, because not only do we check our right-of-way ones, we also check on the private development ones to make sure that they're in compliance, that they're still flowing. Even though they're the ones they're supposed to upkeep it, we need to make sure that we're keeping them on it as well.
Again, real quick, John, that brings to mind this sort of adopt a ditch, or I don't know the exact verbiage, but do you think in Brentwood there could be a situation where, or in other cities, the community maybe already has a hotline that exists, or community members can have some sort of education either from inspectors or from watershed professionals that would allow them to better focus on this green infrastructure and as a community work together to make sure that it's at its best?
Good question. What comes to mind for me is the best example of having community involved in learning about and then maintaining infrastructure of all kinds. Is the city of Oakland does Adopt a Spot program. The city of Berkeley has it as well now, where members of the community can actually adopt storm drains, and they can adopt GI, they can adopt parks to help maintain. And that is they actually have 4 staff members from the city of Oakland who do that, who actually run the Adopt a Spot program. It serves to enhance the capacity, just like I was saying, it's like a community-based approach within the city itself, where they actually go after grants saying, oh, we've had 25,000 hours of volunteer labor helping us maintain, clear trash and maintain plants and maintain GI in the city of Oakland. So that's an example of both Oakland and Berkeley. I think Albany has a similar program, and I think El Cerrito does too.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, everybody. That was great discussion, wonderful presentations, and thank you to the Contra Costa Resource Conservation District and Derek for getting all this set up. And it's our whole speaker series plus the work days. I think we've got a lot of people out and experiencing, the creeks, the wetlands, and it's been an interesting year for what we've done. So thank you to everybody again.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Now, we can be sure.
Okay, thanks, Derek.